There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Thanks. Please be seated. The only item on the order paper is questions addressed to the Deputy President. Honorable members may press the talk button on their desks if they wish to ask a supplementary question. The first question...
Madam Speaker.
Yes, Honorable...
I don't want to disturb the Deputy President, but I would like to raise a question of privilege with you, if I may.
What is the question of privilege?
Madam Speaker, the Deputy President, when he was in the House last to answer questions, reminded this House around the constitutional provisions for the deployment of the SANDF by the President of the Republic of South Africa. Section 55(2)(b) of the Constitution places this House responsible for exercising oversight of the exercise of the executive authority vested in the President. In terms of Section 201(2) of the Constitution, when the President deploys the Defence Force, he is required to inform this House of the reasons why, and there's a set-down prescription on why and how it should be done.
Honourable Steenhuisen, please, I really want to urge you to abandon this point.
Madam Speaker, it is a point...
You know how you need to take
Madam
the
Speaker,
matter
it is a
up.
point of privilege that needs to be raised in the House. In terms of the rules, Rule 31 said I must raise it with you as soon as possible. If you'd allow me to finish, I'm nearly done. During the course of the 2016 deployment of the South African National Defence Force, no such letter from the President was ATC'd or tabled in this House, and therefore the Constitution and the Defence Act have been breached. And all I'm asking you, Madam Speaker, is to please investigate this matter, the circumstances why that procedure that the Deputy President outlined wasn't followed, and to report back to the House on that matter. Thank you.
Honourable members, the first question has been asked by the Honourable Johnson to the Honourable Deputy President. Honourable Deputy President.
Madam Speaker.
Honourable Steenhuisen, can you please take your seat and let's
Madam
proceed.
Speaker, I raised a point of privilege and you need to respond either yes that you will or no that you won't.
Honourable Steenhuisen, of course I will.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honourable Deputy President.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you. Science and technology, as well as innovation, hold the key to equitable growth in our country. That is why the NDP has set what one would call ambitious targets to increase the number of students who are eligible to study towards maths and science degrees by 2030. It calls for the percentage of PhD qualified staff in the higher education sector to be increased from the current 34% to over 75% by 2030. In a rapidly changing global economy where many traditional occupations are continuously being displaced by technology, as we would have heard about the Fourth Industrial Revolution's intentions, it is critical that South Africa develops its scientific research capabilities and produces suitably qualified people who will play a key role in the evolving economy. That is why government is directing greater effort and more resources towards skills development in science, technology, as well as innovation. Since the advent of our democracy, we've made what I would call important progress in this regard. The number of graduates who have done science, engineering, and technology has increased from around 20,000 a year in 1994 to around 58,000 a year in 2015. Now, this is phenomenal progress, but significant challenges still remain, particularly in the area of maths and science, which are still poor across our education system. Although enrollment in science, in engineering and technology in universities has been increasing, there are still only a few graduates who finally complete their studies. Less than 25% of students who enroll for a Bachelor of Science or Engineering degree actually finally graduate. Now, this is a cause for concern. Many of the challenges that they face have their roots in our basic education system, which is still arrested by the apartheid legacy that our country has been through. To address these challenges, government introduced a number of initiatives, and some of those are increasing grants to the provinces to promote teaching and learning of mathematics and science and technology. And in a number of provinces, we see this bearing fruit already. The Department of Basic Education also plans to award 38,000 Funza Lushaka bursaries over medium term at a cost of 3.3 billion to train teachers, particularly in maths and science and technology. Now, this is putting great resources to an area where we need to see great improvement. To strengthen these efforts, the HRDC Council has established mathematics and science standing committee consisting of seasoned academics as well as professionals who are led by Professor Mamokgethi Phakeng to advise the HRDC on improving maths and science in our education. So as we can see, a number of initiatives are underway, and in this regard, we are also working with the private sector to ensure that we do reach the highest levels of success in this regard. Over 13,000 postgraduate students and 796 postgraduate fellows were awarded bursaries through the National Research Foundation that is managed by the Department of Science and Technology. More than 4,300 researchers were awarded research grants through the National Research Foundation. To ensure that our skills development program meet the needs of an innovative and dynamic economy, our SETAs are also doing a great deal of work in this regard. Working together with the private sector, a lot of money is being deployed to ensure that we do have a great deal of success. The private sector is doing some practical work for engineering students and ensuring that they do get the necessary skills. On an overall basis, I think we are making, we've embarked on a number of initiatives, Madam Chair, Madam Speaker, to ensure that we do delve a number of young people in our country into science, technology, and innovation. And we will start seeing the benefits of all this in the next few years as more and more of these young people become renowned scientists, become renowned academics and professors with PhDs as we move ahead with greater success. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Johnson.
Thank you, Deputy President, for that comprehensive response to a very pertinent question that talks to development in this country. My follow-up question would really relate more to an experience in India. Through government initiatives and directives, 1 million of IT specialists are literally trained, and that skill is exported outside India. Whether is our government able to direct universities in basically getting to say X number of engineers are required in this year, or economists in this year, given the fact that government is subsidizing a great deal of these colleges and universities? Whether as government are we able, given the shortage of skills that we talk about from time to time and artisans, are we able to say we require this X number of skills or engineers or any such in any particular given point in time? Thank you, sir.
Honorable Deputy President.
It remains a personal dream and wish that one day we should be able to make a clear target of the number of engineers we would like to see coming out of our universities, a number of scientists and technology specialists and all that. And I think that day is soon coming when we will put a clear target and say we want to see 10,000 engineers coming out of our universities within a period, say, of 4 or 5 years. And what India has been able to achieve stands out as a great example or a lesson for all of us. They are now, as you correctly say, Honorable Member, to export well-trained technologists, either in IT and engineering and science. China is another great example, and indeed a number of other countries. And this has happened because they have invested a lot of resources, time and effort in ensuring that they produce these types of graduates. We are doing exactly the same. We are investing a lot of time and effort. Today, we've got almost 1 million young people in our universities, and in the TVET colleges, we've got 715,000 young people in our TVET colleges. Now, if you look at what we had in the past, this is unprecedented. And our universities, as I was saying, are now producing well-trained graduates. Yes, the numbers may not be as high as we want them to be, but they are creeping up, and they are going up on an ongoing basis. And I'm sure that we will be able to reach that stage when we will be able to set targets and meet those targets. We have it within us. We have the capability to be able to do so. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Mbabama. Mbabama. This is a DA MP.
Excuse me, Madam Speaker. I think there's a fault with my system. It was flicking when we got here. We're just trying to get the attention of somebody to come and look at it.
No, that's fine. Honorable Msibi. No, Honorable Msibi.
Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Msibi.
Yes.
Kulungile,
Yes.
NFP, yes.
Yes, yes, Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Deputy President, we have to escalate it even further from, because we're in a quest for skills development. And in 2014, the President of the Republic said in his SONA, we will expand the number of internship positions in the public sector, with every government department and public entity being required to take interns for experiential learning. He further spoke of employment tax incentive scheme that the private sector had responded to positively. Now, I want to ask a question, Honorable Deputy President, that what is it that has been done to ensure that more youth get into these internships, over and above getting degrees, because this is what we need as well. I'm basing my question on the understanding that just recently, about 50,000 students applied for NSFAS, but their applications were rejected. I think that their spirits were really dampened. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Deputy President.
Madam Speaker, I can testify to the fact that many of our government entities do take on interns and put young people on learnerships. We have close on to 750 state-owned enterprises. Many of those do offer internships and learnerships to young people. But in our collaboration with the private sector, we've been able to get the private sector to agree, and we're finalizing the agreements, to employ up to 1 million young people in internships, into formal programs of internship and learnerships over a 3-year period. My own wish is to have them do 1.5 million, but we're still talking about that. But that is going to offer young people a great opportunity to get into the world of work and learn about work, and thereafter, after the 1 year, they'll be in a much better position to be able to get employment. And in most cases, we find that those young people who get into learnerships do often get absorbed by those companies that give them those opportunities, because those who are top flyers are able to demonstrate to employers that, yes, they should be employed. So we're hoping and wishing that many of those 1 million young people will be brought in. Now, if you look across the landscape of the South African economy, you will find that even private companies of their own volition are taking on young people. So you've got the private sector, you've got the public sector, and you've even got government ministries that take on young people in learnership. So you've got the ministries, you've got state-owned enterprises, and you've got lots of private sector companies. So already there is a huge cohort of young people that are being brought into learnerships. And those who have not had the opportunity will now have the opportunity, up to 350,000 of them in a year, right across the length and the breadth of the country, will have that opportunity which we are creating. We want much more than that. And in fact, whenever we meet the private sector, we challenge them to go just beyond a certain small percentage and inform them that it is to our country's great benefit if they are going to absorb all these young people into learnerships. Learnerships have proven to have great efficacy in giving young people the skills that they need. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Holomisa.
Kofe ngempazamo Speaker ucho.
This was the Honorable Holomisa of the UDM. Okay, we go on to Honorable Nkomo.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Ndimase Aribo, Deputy President. Can we do beneficiary or benefication in this country if we do not have the skills of production? For an example, the Medupi power station, we had to bring in skilled welders from other countries because South Africans welders lacked the required skills. Would you agree, Honorable Deputy President, that South Africa seems to be more obsessed with tertiary qualifications rather than artisan skill development, and this obsession is costing us heavily? Thank you.
Honorable DP.
Ndi masia rendi alivua na mbudziso yavo. I'd like to say that we are seeing a great deal of improvement in the take-up of artisan training by young people, particularly those who go to our TVET colleges, and some even get that type of training in community colleges. And I wouldn't say that we should be dismissive of the type of training that young people are getting in this regard. The TVET colleges are actually beginning to record great success in that they're beginning to do a balance between theoretical learning and practical learning. And that gives young people the opportunity to delve into the practical world of work and to also learn real skills. And some of them are actually taking up artisanship and learning crafts that they become certificated for after some time. Admittedly, we should say that we don't have too many of these great opportunities to give young people the artisan training skills, but they are increasing. The Minister of Higher Education is under a great deal of pressure because he has found that he needs to be building TVET colleges maybe one every week, and the budgetary constraints are holding him back because it is at the TVET colleges that young people are able to pick these skills up. And we're hoping that there'll be more and more of these. Now, the lesson that we learned with Midupi, for instance, did in many ways give us a wake-up call that we did not have those highly specialized welders. Now, we are now training welders in our country, and not only ordinary welders, but your high-tech welders are now being trained here. So, in effect, we are learning from the experience of other countries and bringing in people from various other countries is also a great boon for us because we utilize the skills that they have to transfer skills to us. For instance, we've got a number of mechanics, motor mechanics from Cuba who are in this country, and they are transferring skills, real skills, and because in Cuba they still use the 1950s models. And if you can repair a 1950s car, you can repair anything. So those skills are being transferred to us. Now, if you've ever tried to be a mechanic like I have, you will know that it is of great benefit to use an older car to learn your craft so that you can utilize it on newer cars. So the Cubans are teaching us a lot of skills, and we're learning a lot of other skills from many other nations. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Mutau.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Deputy President, with regard to reference to working with the private sector, the characterization of the private sector as some kind of evil monster, this so-called white monopoly capital, frequently expressed by some in the ANC, and yesterday we saw and heard Honorable Pule Mabi do exactly that, and the SACP and CUSATO cannot be helpful to the government's efforts to facilitate skills development partnerships with the private sector. We heard Minister Pravin Gordhan yesterday warn against this. What impact does this fashionable vilification of the private sector have on the government's efforts to achieve the NDP's goal of facilitating economic growth through skills development, staunch unemployment, and promote job creation? Thank you.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker, our cooperation with the private sector in trying to get their support to help with the skills revolution in our country goes beyond utilization of the type of terms that you are referring to. And they are much more mature, much more visionary, than what you have tried to describe them as. They know the challenge that is at hand, and they are fully aware that they need to work with government and cooperate with us. And in fact, COSATU and a number of other organizations in the labor side, FEDUSA, NACTU, are deeply involved in discussions with the private sector when it comes to training young people. And they sit in forums with government, with the private sector, and themselves, and community-based organizations to address precisely this issue. And people are not hamstrung and held back by terms such as radical economic transformation. And in fact, they find that it describes the challenge and the problem so accurately that they want to be part of the process of radically bringing about changes in our country. So much as you may think that this scares them off and it terrifies them, I think they are much more mature than that, and I think you should credit them with a little bit more intelligence than you do. Thank you very much.
We now come to question number 8, asked by the Honorable Reverend Mishwe, the Honorable the Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker, there are several factors that contribute to civil unrests and disturbances in our country. Some of these ugly scenes we've witnessed at various times over the past few years. The problems of violence that is driven by xenophobia, the violent protests, as well as gangsterism, usually manifest in an environment of widespread poverty, high unemployment, and stark inequality in our country. They are exacerbated by geographical dislocation, poor social services, and competition for scarce resources. Government's response to these challenges is therefore multifaceted and multi-pronged, as many of us will have seen. The response involves not only the organs of state, but has also gained the active cooperation of a number of other role players in our country at civil society level, various forums there and structures, faith-based organizations, community groupings, as well as some individuals in our society. This approach is well demonstrated in government's national strategy against gangsterism, which was approved by Cabinet just recently. In developing the strategy, government undertook a diagnostic process which confirmed that gangsterism is rooted in socioeconomic conditions and is therefore not merely just a law enforcement issue. The strategy places communities at the center of all the efforts that we are seeking to take as government. It aims to empower communities by addressing human development issues, social cohesion issues, and also to address unemployment and issues such as poverty and inequality. It prioritizes social partnerships which we should engender in our communities, particularly with civil society, the private sector, and other stakeholders. It aims to prevent these challenges that we face through improved spatial design and creating safe living spaces for our people. These strategies will be implemented alongside effective law enforcement strategies, upholding the rule of law, and maintaining the integrity of the efficacy of our criminal justice system. As you may know, a comprehensive intersectoral implementation plan for the strategy has been finalized. Engagement with social partners is underway, and a similar approach is also being taken to respond to the xenophobic violence that we have been seeing. This requires interventions at the policy level, through community engagement, and through crime combating and prevention methods, and guided by the Interministerial Committee on Migration, which is chaired by my colleague, Minister Jeff Radebe. A multi-pronged strategy is currently underway. And South Africa's immigration and refugee policy is also being reviewed. The better management of refugees through, amongst other things, the establishment of asylum processing centers that will be closer to the northern border of our country is being explored. Another area is the development of an integration policy for foreign nationals living legally in South Africa, and ongoing sustained dialogue with representatives of the leaders of communities that come from outside the country. And we've also utilized other fairly effective interventions such as Operation Fiela, which has done very well to reduce the levels of criminality in various challenged areas. And as we do all this, we must, as South Africans, stand united against all forms of criminal behavior, racism, sexism, and xenophobia. And we must ensure that all the people, regardless of where they come from, are treated with dignity as well as with respect. Thank you.
The Honorable Reverend Mishwe.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, Deputy President. Recent reports of xenophobia, farm murders, gang and drug-related violence seem to indicate that government has failed in its attempt to restore social cohesion in the country. The intensity of hatred and brutality of some of the attacks on foreign nationals, farmers and their workers, such as the stories we hear of victims being tortured with cigarettes, blowtorches and hot irons, are truly disturbing and frightening. Even helpless 95-year-old grandmothers are not spared. They are raped and strangled with telephone cords and killed in their own homes, as happened this past week in Port Elizabeth. Would the Deputy President then agree that government's efforts to encourage particularly social cohesion are failing because government has departed from prioritizing reconciliation and nation building that has been initiated and spearheaded by the late President Nelson Mandela? If the DP does not agree, could he expand on other possible reasons for this apparent failure as evidenced by increasing contact crimes? Thank you.
The Honorable Deputy President.
I sought in my earlier answer to give a fairly detailed explanation of the efforts that are being made by government to address precisely these challenges. And I cannot agree that government has failed in its effort and task to promote and foster social cohesion in our country. We continue to deal with this matter as a priority. And indeed, the various programs and interventions that we are embarking on an ongoing basis are aimed at precisely promoting social cohesion. So I will disagree with you, Honorable Mishwe, my good reverend, on this issue. I think if you look very closely and carefully, you will find that indeed the South African government has often gone out of its way to promote social cohesion. Admittedly, we face enormous challenges, and I would say no more challenges than many other countries do, but in our case especially so, because when it comes to issues that impact on xenophobia, we have become an oasis that many people from various other countries face, and when you interpose that on the challenges that we face as a nation in relation to poverty, inequality, and unemployment, there is always a conflict that will arise, and the government is always there to mediate that and to address it. And where these challenges flare up in forms of violence, the government, acting obviously together with other role players, is always on hand to lead the charge. And of course, we are eternally grateful to faith-based organizations, the type of organization at the church level that you lead also plays a key role. So for that, I'm able to stand here in Parliament and thank you for the role that you yourself play as a reverend of the church, man of the cloth. And we thank you for assisting in this regard. And we would call upon you to continue doing so, because this is a collective task. It's not the government's task alone. Thank you very much, Reverend.
The Honorable Msimang.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I am glad, Honorable Deputy President, that the government recognizes so many social measures that could be used or are being used to correct antisocial behavior in our communities. I'm saying this because I do have the fear that in South Africa we tend to be over-legislated. We seem to think that any deviant behavior must be corrected by legislation. My own view is that these social measures are more effective, and therefore the government should invest more on these measures than on legislation. I wonder if the Deputy President agrees with me. Thank you.
The Honorable the Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker, I am delighted to hear that the Honorable Member is pleased to see that the government has embarked and continues to embark on these social measures and interventions to address these challenges. And I would agree with him that indeed these social measures and interventions often have a far greater impact than utilizing the strong arm of the law. And we have proven that to be the case, and that is why even our strategy on fighting the scourge of gangsterism is pivoted around building partnerships, going into communities, and through this you will see members of the South African Police Service acting together with other arms of government, going into communities, having detailed or in-depth discussions with members of the communities where gangsterism has become a huge problem. And indeed, it is not only around gangsterism, also on xenophobia. We are moving inch by inch, house to house, street by street, to various communities, because it has been proven over and over that it is through social engagement that we are able to address key social challenges. And I'm glad that you so recognize this. And we would invite you, and indeed your party, to participate in all this so that we work together. Even as you smile away, I would say, let's hold hands together so that we address these challenges. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Kwankwa.
Thank you very much, Speaker. DP, the question centers around the xenophobic violence that we've seen over the past few weeks in the country. And in particular, if one reads the African Peer Review Mechanism report, the 2007 one, it highlights an important issue. It talks about the unfair competition between undocumented and illegal migrants in the country and South Africans in the labor market. Have you, as government, why have you not addressed that problem? Is the first question. The second question, which is also related to that, it's part of the main question, is that has government not dropped the ball in terms of conflict resolution and management in Africa? Because that is another way of dealing proactively with the influx of people that come into the country. just closing the porous borders, for instance, is not going to solve the problem alone. It means it needs to be managed proactively at a strategic level. Thank you so much.
Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker and Honorable Kwankwa. We continue to be involved in this whole issue of migration. The structure that is headed by Minister Jeff Hadebe is addressing precisely this, and it's a multidisciplinary structure in which various ministries or departments are represented, and they are looking precisely at this issue of undocumented, and we are becoming very proactive and very compassionate in dealing with them. And that is why we've been looking very closely at setting up these reception centers closer to our northern border, so that at the point of reception we are able to process them, to be able to distinguish those who have documents and those who don't, and also processing them, find out precisely what has brought them to the shores of our country. So that we are doing, and with regard to conflict resolution processes, we continue to be engaged. We are the one country that is relied upon by our peers on the African continent to be the country that you go to for help, assistance, and support. And we are giving a lot of support to our neighbors, but beyond our neighbors, to other countries on the African continent. You mentioned the word South Africa. People, it often conjures up in people's minds support, assistance, a friend, a brother, and a sister. That is what it brings up in many people's mind, and we will continue with this process because it is through building peace on the African continent that we will be able to ensure that more and more of our countries on the continent do become successful to a point where many of their own citizens do not see the need to traverse borders of various countries to come to one single country. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Mbele.
Ngiyabonga Somlomo. Sekela Mongameli, in your first response, you mentioned law enforcement and the rule of law. So I think you would agree that in order to have social cohesion and less unrest, we need good relations between the police and communities and a more effective police service. Where these relations break down, vigilantism can erupt, which weakens that cohesion. And where the police service is understaffed and under-resourced, which is pretty much everywhere, it cannot work to contain the violence that accompanies the protests, some protests, and all xenophobic attacks. This violence escalates and spreads, and that in turn undermines cohesion. So, Deputy President, what will you do specifically to enforce the accountability of Police Minister Ntleko for ensuring the effectiveness of the police through better training and resourcing at station level to fix crime intelligence and detective services and to better capacitate public order policing?
Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Minister Ntleko works within the broad parameters of the governing party's policy. And the policy approach is to have a South African police service that works in terms of law enforcement, that works together with the community. And that is why we rely so heavily on community policing forums. In a number of places in our country, these work very well. And in some cases, there are challenges that we are well aware of, challenges that we are seeking to address. And it is only through the police working together with communities, with community leaders and various structures in our communities, that policing and adherence to law and order is heightened and becomes a lot better. And admittedly, yes, the police in our country are overstretched. The task they have at hand is huge, and they themselves know that they can never do it alone. They can only do it effectively if they work together with the communities and the various structures in communities. And what the police need is more support, more understanding, and more help. And that's precisely what we ought to be giving the members of our police service. So Minister Nhleko is very strong on this. He knows that the success of his task, the success of policing in our country can best be executed when we work together, or when the police work together with various other role players in communities. And it is at community level that we will be able to win this task, this challenge even more. In places where, for instance, gangsterism has become rife, we find that success is reached when the community hold hands with police and they together root out gangsters in a way where they close spaces for them to operate, and in the end, gangsters in some cases realize that they have nowhere else to run. And it also happens with drug peddlers and dealers. So it is through community action and police vigilance that we will be able to gain a lot of success. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, before we proceed to the next question, I wish to deal with a matter that has arisen, which has been brought to my attention by the Honorable M.G. Buthelezi. In the sitting of the SONA evening, in reference to the Honorable Buthelezi, I used the words, and I quote, "Nanti ikehla," close quotes. The Honorable Member has indicated to me that he found these words disparaging and offensive. Honorable Buthelezi, please accept my apologies. As I indicated before, it was never my intention to offend or show disrespect to you. I thank you for your attention, honorable members. We have been writing to each other, that is Honorable Buthelezi and I. That's why I know what he said. I wrote a letter of apology and explained that these words were not meant disrespectfully. And he responded to me and gave me fatherly advice, which I have taken, and I thank you, all of you. We now come to question number 9. Which has been asked by the Honorable Malgas to the Deputy President. Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Speaker. Point of order.
Honorable Buthelezi.
Let me allow. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Ministers, and Honorable Deputy Ministers, and Honorable Members of the House. I would like to thank Honorable Speaker for wiping that off from the record, because the Amakesha were actually people that the king of the Zulus from time to time would give them rings, Makesha, so that they were called Amakesha when they were supposed to get married, because they couldn't get married, because they were not allowed to marry before the king said so. But over the time, you know, the way it has been used by some people derogatorily, I realize, Honorable Speaker, that I'm old, which is a blessing from the Almighty God. And I don't resent that it's a blessing, because the worst Zulu curse that anyone can utter is to say, so and so's son will never carry the white shield. Umfana kabani uphatha kanje angeke asiphathe isihlangu esimhlophe, meaning that you'll never have the gray hair, which is always a blessing for those people who have exceeded the 70 years that are actually given to us by God. So that is why I'm out of fashion because I'm very proud. I don't have to peel off my hair to hide my white hair or my bald head, as is fashionable now. So I really think I have highest respect for you, Madam Speaker, and highest respect for every member of the House, whether they are ministers or ordinary members like myself. And I'm just grateful. I can just tell you a small anecdote. You know Dr. Zami Tono, he chaired the Kliptown Congress in Kliptown, and he was the deputy leader of the ANC in the province of of Natal, as it was. And he told me that when they were young, Madam Speaker, there was an old man, when they're heading cattle, they would say, Nandi Kesha, Nandi Kesha. And he says then, the old man would say, Nandi Kesha's on your way. So quite often too, when people use this word, I always say they must tell me at what sport. Thanks very much, Madam.
Thank you, Honorable. We come to the question raised by Honorable Malgas.
Point of order, Speaker.
What's the point of order, Honorable Member?
We were number 3 on that list, Speaker, and you just decided not to communicate with us.
No, Honorable Member, you were not number 3.
Same Matthias.
No, Honorable, no, you were not on the list. Oh,
No,
you
we
were
were
definitely not number 3.
But you can confirm.
No,
to
you
this gentleman.
are not. I work with the table here.
That means this gentleman is misleading us because he confirmed.
No, Honorable Member, you please just take your seat now. We come to question number 9 asked by the Honorable Malgas. Honorable Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker, thank you. The development indicators on social cohesion point to some progress in spite of us being such a deeply divided society as pronounced by the National Planning Commission when it prepared the National Development Plan. These indicators include the role of civil society, the participation of citizen relations, and also pride in being South African. The promotion of our common identity, as well as accepting our differences, is key to nation building and social cohesion. For example, the percentage of people in our country who see themselves as South Africans or as Africans first before any other identity has increased from 71% in 2004 to 87% in 2014. Many areas of government work contribute to nation building and bonding our country together. This includes improving the material conditions of all South Africans so that they share in a common sense of ownership and belonging. Since 1994, we have seen tremendous progress in our country, and I was overjoyed to read the report of the South African Institute of Race Relations, a report they called South Africa, Life in South Africa, Reasons for Hope. And in that report, Madam Speaker, they say this report is about the things that have gone right in South Africa, and the report features a selection of the socio-economic successes we have achieved as a country and as a nation, and the many ways in which life in South Africa for its people has become better. to a point of contributing to nation building. And they say in their report, some people will think that this report is a rather strange one, but they say, but amidst the turmoil that many people will often talk about, analysts who looked at our country see a story of a young democracy that has made a vast amount of progress in fields ranging from the economy, employment, to living standards, to reducing poverty, to education, healthcare, and crime. And they say this is not captured in the screaming newspaper headlines, but the substantive progress we have made as a country since the end of apartheid is a story of hope amid the change that we have been making as a country. When I read this report, and the South African Institute of Race Relations is a very thorough organization when it comes to doing proper analysis on our condition, I was rather pleased to see that there are people who look at us as a country and as a people and can see that indeed we have made progress. And the progress that we have made has clearly contributed to increasing, enhancing nation building, and also engendering social cohesion. And we've built millions of houses. We've made electricity accessible to many more people. Many more of our children are at schools, they're at universities, and in fact, one of the greatest successes is that we now have more than universal access when it comes to basic education. Now, that is the greatest success that we have achieved, and yebo siyaqhuba siqhubekela phambili, and that is the great benefit. Now, significant progress, Madam Speaker, has also been made in lifting our people out of poverty and creating jobs in a growing economy. And when the governing party got into office, we only had 7.4 million people in South Africa who worked. Today we have 16 million people who work. Unemployment remains a challenge, but we have been creating jobs on an ongoing basis. The great challenge is that we've had many more job seekers who have been coming onto the market. As we ended the year, last year, Stats South Africa tells us, we had created 325,000 jobs, or 235,000 jobs. That in itself is great success. And we have created a number of structures, many structures that are meant to enhance nation building, engender social cohesion, and we passed quite a number of laws. So there is a lot that we can be grateful for that we have done in a very practical way to enhance nation building and also engender social cohesion. And the moral regeneration movement that we set up has held various campaigns to popularize what they call the Charter of Positive Values about our country. And the Department of Basic Education has embarked on a number of other initiatives to on a process to evaluate things like encourage young people to learn about racism, sexism, and also to be more tolerant. Nation building, Madam Speaker, is by its nature an ongoing process. While government has a leading role to play in it, it is ultimately the responsibility of every social movement, every social institution has a responsibility. Every company, every organization, and indeed every family has a responsibility to build a society in which all the people of our country can share a common sense of nationhood. And in this regard, South Africa, yes, is emerging as a nation, and all of us has a role to play in making us a true South African nation. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Malgas.
Thank you, Deputy President. I thank you. It was a very positive response. But a number of things come to mind. As individuals, we are socialized, acquiring knowledge, language, social skills, and values to conform to the norms and roles required for integration into the community. It is evident because you were speaking to certain things in the way we think as individuals, the way we perceive things, the way we relate to others. Being empathetic in understanding and sympathetic to another perspective. Even parenthood, like you said, institutions like education, churches, influence individuals in different ways. And you spoke about South Africa is divided. Therefore, Mr. President, do you think it is important to start with individuals? Because I'd like you to speak to our individuals on the ground the way you were doing, but taking it further, where everything begins to enhance nation building and social cohesion. I thank you.
The Honorable, the Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker, yes, it is important to talk about individuals, but in the end, it is individuals who make up families, who make up communities, and who make up a nation. Obviously, the starting point has to be individuals, and it is important in this regard to also start with our children. Our children at a fairly young age need to be imbued with the principles of nation building, great values that need to be imparted to them, and that is why even at school they need to be exposed to the preamble of our Constitution, to the values and principles that are enshrined in our Constitution that include concepts such as tolerance, concepts such as equality, and concepts such as respect for one another. And it is only when as South Africans we respect one another that our level of consciousness rises to a point where we know that South Africa is a home to all of us. South Africa is about being non-racial, it's about being equal, it is about being non-sexist, and it is about being a nation that is made of diverse people. People from different cultures, different language groups, and people who are united by their South Africanness. That common thread that unites all of us as South Africans is that we are human and we are South Africans, and the rest of other things follow thereafter. So it is important that this level of consciousness should be heightened, and it should cascade from the family into the community. And it is at family level that these values of integrity, values of respect, of tolerance, values of non-racism, non-sexism should be taught in our own homes, should be lived, and so that they then flow outside into the community and the society where we all live. And that is how we build nations, and that is how, in the end, we build successful and winning nations. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Kubisa.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Honorable Deputy President, it is clear that we still have a myriad of these historical and structural inequalities, and they manifest themselves in a number of ways, in power relations and also in education. Our people don't have access to land, property, etc. So these are the matters that must be taken into cognizance when we deal with issues of social cohesion and nation building. Now, I can narrate a story, Deputy President, that in the early 80s, for instance, a female teacher who was M+3, who had a diploma, was getting far lesser than a male teacher who had an honors degree. I want to ask you whether in a way of nation building, how far has government progressed by way of ensuring that we have more women in the private sector who occupy leadership and management positions, and also in the public sector? Thank you very much.
The Honorable the Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker, the issue of equality between men and women is a very important one to the government, but more particularly the empowerment of women, because they have always, as a gender, carried the burden of being oppressed, being black and being women. So they need to be empowered in an exponential manner. They need to be focused on, and that's precisely what government has committed itself to doing. And if you've listened to the President's SONA speeches, he's often come out very strongly on that, and that is why we even have a ministry in government that just focuses on the empowerment of women as well as girl children. Now, in the private sector, yes, there's been progress, but the progress has not been great. And these can be gleaned from the various reports that are given, also given by the Ministry of Women. A great deal of progress still needs to be made in the private sector. In government, a lot of progress has been recorded. If you look at us as a parliament, we are one of those parliaments that can be proud that we do have a fair number of women representation, but more particularly on the side of the governing party, we have recorded much more progress than many others. And so progress still needs to be made, and in government positions, we still need to make more progress. But we are continuing to focus on the issue of the empowerment of women. It is a project that must succeed. It is a project that must be moved forward, because as a nation, we need to be benefiting from the talent, from the capability, and from the work that can be done by women. And in most cases, they are even a lot better than men. So I think we need to focus on the empowerment of women. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Dlamini.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Deputy President, we agree, all of us in South Africa, both black and white, that the nation building is the most important project that we should embark on as a nation. But we also agree that the nation destruction in this country was orchestrated by the white apartheid government. And at the center of that, it was the removal of black people by force from their own land. Now, your president, Mr. Zuma, has said several times that we must, both of us, all black parties in this parliament, we must accelerate the amendment of Section 25 of the Constitution so that we can speed up the issue of the land. Your chief whip, Mr. Jackson Tim, who has said on Twitter that your caucus has made a mistake by trying to hide behind the Constitution. They should have agreed with us. Your deputy minister, Anna Lodlo, did not say, she did not even come to parliament because she believes that we should have amended Section 25 of the Constitution. Now, your president has said it, regardless of whether it's an ANC policy or not. Do you support the call that we must amend Section 25 of the Constitution and expropriate land without compensation as part of the showing that we are serious about nation building?
Honorable Member, your time for a question long expired.
I've asked, but I can repeat it. Do you support that call? That next
Honorable
week, let's
Deputy
go and...
President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The same question was asked last week. And it seems like, as Honorable Shibambo is indicating with his finger, that it's going to be asked on an ongoing basis forever and so forth. So I think the issue of land, and we've said so, we are on the record as saying the issue of land is very important and should be seen as being important to all South Africans. There was a great injustice done against the black majority in our country. That goes without question. If you were to ask every member of parliament sitting here who is black, they would be able to tell you personal stories of how in their own families, through their own forebears, they were moved, forcibly moved from the land they were born in. I experienced it twice in my family, on my mother's family side and where I grew up when we were moved in 1962. So that goes without saying. So all of us have experienced it. What we are called to do as a parliament is to approach this matter, which has been raised not only by the EFF, by the way, it's been raised by all and sundry. And when you hear the president speaking on this matter, he's speaking from a deep-seated pain that is felt by all black people in our country. And as we feel this pain, we must then find solutions on how we are going to deal with this historical injustice. And dealing with it is not going to be sufficient to just to pronounce slogans. We've got to find practical ways of dealing with this issue. Yes, admittedly, amending the Constitution is one of the strategies, but it's by no means the only one. Implementing what we've got in our Constitution is also another strategy. And doing a whole number of things are strategies that we should utilize. So, no, you must never sit there and say you have the monopoly of the truth and everything that is correct. We all feel the pain. You don't feel the pain of land deprivation more than anyone else sitting on this side. We feel it the same way. And let me promise you one thing. Let me promise you one thing. The commitment that is on this side of the house is so deep and so thorough. We are going to solve this problem. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Putwa.
On a point of order, Honorable Speaker. On a point of order.
What's the point of order, Honorable Shibambu?
The rules of this House demand that when we ask questions, they must be responded to. But the Deputy President just waffled now and says that it's either this or this. We are asking if he supports expropriation of land without compensation.
No, Honorable Shibambu, that's not a point of order.
It's a simple question.
Honorable Shibambu, just take your
seat. We know where he's
take
standing.
Your seat. Honorable Putwa.
Deputy President, allow me to just take you back and agree that indeed the Constitution has a direct bearing on social cohesion. And through its preamble, it acknowledges the injustices of the past and gives us assurance that South Africa belongs to all those who live in it. Now, the presidency is tasked with the role to unify and reconcile all South Africans. However, the recent utterances of the president have been rather divisive, and one can even argue that they have been racist. Now, how then do we move forward as a country with leaders such as him?
The Honorable Deputy President.
I don't know in what respect the President's utterances in this have been divisive. And what the President was saying was that this problem needs to be resolved, and those political formations here, those formations that are sitting in this parliament that are progressive, that have a radical intent, are the ones that he was talking about. He was not seeking to divide. And if the dividing line is going to be being conservative or being progressive, that's what then will divide you from what is the truth. Because I think we should admit on this side sits the progressive side of this house, and I would say maybe around there. But on this other side, and I think you must admit, what the DA stands for is conservatism. That's what you stand for. So that is the dividing line between the two. So the president was not being racist. He was just really talking, that's real politics, if you ever wanted to know what politics is all about.
Honorable members, we now come to question number 10, which has been asked by the Leader of the Opposition, the Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much. I could say that I'm rather fortunate in terms of I could have pleaded for right not to answer this question because a member of the Leader of the Opposition's party answered this question for me very adequately last week when he said, and that was Honorable Steenhuisen, when he quoted from the Constitution and said, in terms of the Constitution, members of the cabinet are accountable collectively and individually to Parliament for the exercise of their powers and the performance of their functions. Now, that is enshrined in Section 92(2) of the Constitution. But the Constitution goes further to say, members of cabinet must provide Parliament with full and regular reports containing matters under their control. And on a practical level, this matter of ensuring that members of Parliament do all that is set out in the Constitution, I should say that the National Assembly, Parliament, has much more overriding powers than the Leader of Government Business would ever have. Because here, we're talking about what the Constitution sets out. The Constitution gives us, as the Parliament, the power to make members of the executive accountable to us as a collective. And the office that is here in Parliament, which accounts to the Speaker, is an office that should make all those arrangements to which the Honourable Leader of the Opposition was talking about. Now, what I can say is that the executive remains committed to ensuring that as a collective, it remains committed to account regularly and effectively to Parliament. And Cabinet receives a regular report on these matters on an ongoing basis, and where problems are identified, steps are taken to address these problems. Now, here as Parliament, we are entitled, Leader of the Opposition, Honourable Maimane, to use the collective power that we have to make the members of the executive sitting here to account. Now, if they don't come, and if they don't account, the Parliament has the power to make them account. Use the Constitution. It is the Constitution that should be utilized. And you have that power that is clearly set out in the Constitution. Now, you are the people who always refer to the Constitution. Use your Constitution. Read it every night. Love your Constitution. Utilize it effectively because it is your shield and your weapon. Thank you very much.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Deputy President, 17 million South Africans are sitting at home today wondering whether or not at the end of this month they'll be able to receive their social grants. The respective minister that we are talking about came to this particular house and even in her appearance at Scopa refused to answer questions. In her appearance in a press conference, refused to answer questions. She is now, the very same minister, is going to the Constitutional Court to request that they extend a contract that the Constitutional Court found was in fact illegal a number of years ago. There is a point as South Africans, Deputy President, that we must stand on the side of South Africans who are poor. And I'm here to pledge and urge you to say, stand with the South Africans who are waiting at home, waiting for social grants. Would you support the call to say that Minister Batabile Dlamini should in fact resign over this crisis over social grants? Because it's for South Africa.
The Honorable, the Deputy President.
Now, Honorable Maimani, this matter is being dealt with. The Constitutional Court, if you won't listen to me, listen to what the Constitutional Court is seeking to do. The Constitutional Court is dealing with this matter as they did. Now they are dealing with this matter effectively. The minister or the ministry has approached the court with a particular prayer, and it is up to the Constitutional Court, this very high court, in fact, the highest court in our land, a court that is so well endowed with wise brains, wise minds, is going to deliberate on this matter as they did in the past. And they are going to make a ruling. Now, given the time frame that we have to the end of the month, I am absolutely certain that the court is going to pull out all stops and deal with this matter with the level of urgency that it requires. Let us allow the institution that has been put in place to deal with this matter to deal with it. But at the same time, let us allow the department, the ministry to deal with this matter. It is a matter of enormous proportions. Many of our people are concerned, but the matter is being dealt with, and I'm absolutely certain a solution is going to be found. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Madam Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Stenezen, what's the point on which you are rising?
Madam Speaker, the point is that that's not the question that the Honourable Maimani asked.
No,
He asked the
Honourable.
Deputy President whether he supported the call for Batabile Dlamini, Minister Batabile Dlamini, to resign. That was the question.
The Honorable,
Madam
Honorable
Speaker, you have a duty
Stenezen,
to
please
protect,
take your seat.
You have a duty to protect the minority
Take
parties
your
in the
seat,
House.
Honorable
And that is
Stenezen.
why we can't hold anybody accountable in this House, because she doesn't know the
Honorable
Constitution.
Stenezen, please take your seat. Honorable Sheikh Imam. Honorable Sheikh Imam, is he here? He's not around. Honorable Hlengwa.
Ngiyathokoza ukuqosha ithuba mhlonishwa Somlomo. Honorable Deputy President, as a member of SCOPA, I want to assure you that on Tuesday we left none the wiser after the minister had addressed us. There was no sense of a direction, there was no leadership, there was no accountability. Okay. Honorable Deputy President, notwithstanding that, here's the question which I think is at the foremost of our minds. Why is the Department of Social Development and Government by extension pursuing a Siamese twin relationship with CPS, which is a corrupt company, a bunch of looters, crooks and criminals of the highest order, who have facilitated illegal deductions of these social grants and all sorts of manner of things? The president speaks about radical economic transformation. CPS is owned, American-owned, Australian-owned. Where does it fit in when you get 3.2 billion rands plus into the agenda of radical economic transformation, taking money here, going abroad? It seems as if government is speaking from both sides of its mouth, and I would plead with you today to clarify us ukuthi nathandana kangaka no CPS.
Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I am sorry that when SCOPA met with the minister, what you say ensued. The matter, as I said, is being dealt with.
Order.
Logo ukuthandana kwe-CPS nabantu laba babalayo ngempela angikwazi ngempela, but it's a matter that is being addressed, and I think what should be foremost in our minds right now is that a solution should be found to address the challenge that we have at hand. And as I said, the Constitutional Court has now entered the scene on this matter, and the matter is now being dealt with at the highest level of the Constitutional Court, at the highest level of government as well. And that matter should be given time to be resolved, as it will be resolved, as it must be resolved, because there is just no other way other than to resolve this matter. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Olomisa.
Honorable Madam Speaker, Deputy President, as a leader of the government business, the performance of Minister Dlamini has gone beyond undermining the National Assembly to include the Constitutional Court, thus bringing the executive and the country into disrepute. Would you advise the presidency to consider evaluating the fitness to hold the office and any other executive position? Ikwanguye lo mama owathi xa sibuzayo uba kutheni kudidaktwa imali zamaxhegwazana kuthiwa bhatalele i-airtime, wathi uyayi-investigator, yet is part of the agreement kwangulo CPS. Awusincede mhlekazi ngale evaluation, izawumevaluata nini?
The Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members of the executive are evaluated by the President, who appoints them. The President evaluates the Deputy President and members of the executive on an ongoing basis, because in his hand rests the power to appoint and to do otherwise. So the President, what you are saying, really belongs to the realm of the presidential prerogative, and it is the President only who can do so. Thank you very much, Mhlekazi. Ngiyathemba ukuthi uyayiva le nto.
The Honorable Ntombela.
Thank you, Chair. Angibonge Sekela Mongameli. Taking into consideration what Honorable Steenhuisen said, today a member of the same party wants the DP to act as a policeman with a baton or a speed corps of some sort to the cabinet ministers, contrary to what they were mulling about only yesterday. This is flagrant double standard and an obvious abuse of the Constitution. Now my question is, DP, given the provisions of the Constitution, would it therefore not eventually happen that ministers may be assigned some functions elsewhere by the President, or when circumstances demand, since they must account collectively and individually to Parliament? This question to me smacks of political bankruptcy and a blatant opportunism by the DA. Thank you.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker, the Constitution is quite clear. Members of the executive are appointed by the President. The President appoints the Deputy President and ministers, and having done so, the president then assigns them duties and tasks. He allocates to us what tasks we should execute. There may be times when he allocates you a task and he may take it away and allocate it to someone else. So what we are really dealing with here is the constitutional right of the president and his prerogative to assign tasks, to appoint ministers, and to evaluate them. And colleagues, yes, the president can appoint and fire. It is his prerogative. Let's read our Constitution very carefully. And as I said, maybe, Madam Speaker, we should make it available for bedtime reading to members of this Assembly, so that we can all best understand what the Constitution says. It is the prerogative of the President. It is not the prerogative of the Deputy President, the leader of government business, or whoever else. That only resides in the President's terrain and power. Thank you very much.
We now come to question number 11, which has been asked by the Honorable Gina to the Deputy President. Honorable Deputy President.
Madam Speaker, the transformation agenda of every administration since the advent of democracy has been directed towards the achievement of a better life for all. That slogan still rings true to what the governing party has been committed to ever since 1994. Our programs in achieving this better life for all are guided by the vision that was set out in the Freedom Charter and by the constitutional injunction to improve the quality of life of all citizens of this country, and to do this with the view of freeing the potential of each person who lives in this country. And in furtherance of this, government has directed enormous resources towards meeting the needs of the poor, implementing policies to de-racialize the economy of our country, to build a skills base of the black majority, and to create jobs through sustainable growth. There have been notable achievements, and on the growth side, real per capita GDP has increased by 1/3 since 1994. The number of South Africans that are in employment have increased. However, because the size of the labor force has also grown over this period, as I was saying earlier, the rate of unemployment has grown. To the people who have benefited from the various programs, the improvement of their living conditions has been truly transformative. Several legal instruments have been put in place to de-racialize the economy of our country, and these have included the Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment Act, the Preferential Procurement Policy Framework Act, Employment Equity, and many other laws that have been put in place. The impact of these, together with our investment in education, is evident in the significant growth of the middle class in our country. Total enrollment at universities more than doubled in the first 20 years of our democracy. The percentage of those who enrolled were African increased from under 50% to over 70% in 2014. Because there is such a strong link between educational performance and inclusive growth, government continues to use redistributive financing to increase the number of students from poor backgrounds who can access tertiary education. As indicated by Minister Pravin Gordhan, in the 2017 budget, government is directing significant resources towards areas that promote inclusive growth. These include the support for SMMEs and cooperatives. This also includes industrial infrastructure, particularly in special economic zones, industrial parks, broadband rollout. We are further promoting economic transformation by strengthening BEE provisions and procurement policy, intensifying also land redistribution. We have made significant progress in our transition from a racially divided, unequal and undeveloped state towards one which is more equal, moving more towards prosperity, and in which all of us have to achieve our potential. While there is still a long way to go, we are making important strides. Working together, we believe that we can reach our destination. That is the journey that we have embarked upon, and it is a journey that has been worthwhile, because indeed life in South Africa has improved, as said by the South African Institute of Race Relations. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Gina.
Ngibonga kakhulu Somlomo. Sekela Mongameli. Impendulo yakho ibonise indlela ende esihanjiwe kuleminyaka eyamashumi amabili nantathu sikuhulumeni wentando yeningi. Impendulo yakho ibonisa nemigomo phecelezi ama policies neinhlelo eziningi ezikhona ekutheni ezomnotho zingasatshaliswa kanjani ukuthi impilo zabantu zithuthuke, yonke impilo yomuntu ibe ngcono. Engifisa ukukulandelisa lapho kuwe Mongameli, usekela Mongameli, ilombuzo ukuthi kulemgomo emihle engaka sekela Mongameli ekhona, singenza kanjani uhulumeni ukuthi sondele kakhulu kuloko esikubiza ngokuthi izindlela ezisheshayo eziwubukhephu ezinamandla, the radical ways, la esobonisa khona ukuthi the policies that are in place sifisa ngempela ukuthi ngokushesha in a very radical manner ikwazi ukufinyelela abantu ngendlela esheshayo nephuthumayo. Sikuncoma kakhulu ukuthi ngeminyaka nje u23 kodwa kuningi kangaka uhulumeni wentando yeningi asekubekile. Ngiyabonga Somlomo.
Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Let me say, you know, there's this wonderful wave that's spreading around the world, which has to do with inclusive growth, where ordinary people are clamoring for inclusivity, that they need to be included in whatever growth process in the economy or generally in society that there is. And this happens to be so much the case nala ekhaya eMzansi Afrika, ngoba abantu bakithi bathanda kakhulu ukuthi kuyo yonke into enzwayo iyenzwe egameni labo, futhi nabo babona ukuthi ba-involved yonke into abayenzayo. Kungaba izinto zomnotho, kungaba izinto ze-safety, kungaba noma yini abantu bakithi lapha eMzansi Africa. And you could actually say maybe this is a South African coined process where our people, in prosecuting their struggle to rid themselves of apartheid misrule, were so deeply immersed and involved and felt that this freedom must be a freedom they own and they must get involved. And beyond that, they have sought to be involved in various other endeavors of South African life, including economic growth. So, uma sikhuluma nge-radical economic transformation, yona ke into abantu bakithi abafuna ukuthi nabo babe involved kuyo. babe nendlela abangakwazi ukuthi bafake isandla ingabashiyi ngasemuva. So it is important for us that as we transform our economy, we should transform it based on inclusivity. It must be inclusive growth that our people can feel, touch, and see. And it is that which I believe can be a great engine, a great driver of our economic growth. And if we can underpin everything that we do with that type of approach, we would then be able to add a great deal of impetus to our economic growth, because an economy grows best when the people who are meant to benefit from the economic growth are involved themselves, are active participants. For a long time in the past, the majority of our people were excluded from participating meaningfully in the economy. The time has now come for them to be so deeply involved in economic growth, and through that, we will then be able to generate radical economic transformation and economic growth on an inclusive basis so that they can all benefit. And localization, for instance, becomes even much more of a key driver of our economic endeavors, where we begin to localize and take those types of economic interventions at the local level so that people themselves can feel that they are participating and they are involved. And a whole range of others. For instance, the township economy becomes one such key driver, where we want to be able to have a township economy that will involve people who were previously excluded from economic participation in a meaningful way, who were just seen as people coming from the dormitories of a capitalist economy. Now, through township economies, they'll become participants and they will be able to play a key role in the economy. Ngaloko ke, Honorable Member ngithi, sizokwazi ke uma siyenza ukuthi abantu bakithi babe ne role abazayidlala kule economy yethu, nabo bazizwe ukuthi ba-involved, baya-participate ngempela, kukhona ke economy yethu izakwazi ukuthi ikhule. Ngiyabonga.
The Honorable Liz.
Somlama, Deputy President, uyazi ukuthi inhliziyo yobuhlungu. Ngiyalalela kodwa angizwa umpendulo wombuzo wethu. Kodwa kukhona okunye. Unlike my colleagues, I found your suggestion about Cuban mechanics incredibly insightful and foresight, because I look forward to the ability of the mechanics to be able to repair my wife's 1967 Wolseley 1660. Deputy President, it is universally agreed, even by countries such as China, that the only surefire way of eliminating poverty is to promote economic growth. It is also universally recognized that the slow pace of private investment, the so-called investment strike that is talked about, is a direct consequence of government's poor management of the economy, and in particular, the lack of policy certainty. Mr. Deputy President, what are your reservations that you may have about Parliament establishing an ad hoc multi-party committee to provide scrutiny and oversight of the implementation of the structural reforms necessary to boost economic growth and create jobs?
The Honorable Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker, Honorable Mazamba, ngiyajabula impela ukuthi ngikwazi ukuphendula umbuzo wakho. Ngiyajabula ukuzwa ukuthi lo mzekelo ngubekile abo mechanic abaphuma eCuba, uyathanda ukuthi bancede unkosikazi wakho balungisa iWolseley kodwa umbuzo engakubuza wona ukuthi kutheni wenza ukuthi unkosikazi wakho adrive imoto endala kangaka iWolseley ngempela awu ngoba leyo moto ngiyathemba ihamba istark endleleni awumthengele imoto engcono ukuthi akwazi ukuhamba ngemoto engcono. Honorable Speaker, just in answering the question, it's possible that maybe when we next go to the World Economic Forum, in relation to your reference of China, who you say said that you can only really get rid of unemployment through economic growth. It is true that they said so, but I wish I had taken you along to go and listen to President Xi Jinping, who basically said it was when they really embraced globalization, which transformed their economy, that they were able to see tremendous growth. And a statement which is no different from what the Minister of Finance was saying here, that it is through transformation that we will be able also to have inclusive growth. So the two can be done in tandem, hand in hand. It is not one excluding the other. The two are not mutually exclusive. You can actually do both. Growth can be generated through transformation, and this is precisely what we are saying in this Parliament as well. With regard to setting up a special ad hoc committee, I would say members of Parliament have all the opportunity through the various portfolio committees to participate in discussions that have an impact on our economy. And in fact, I can count a number of portfolio committees where members of Parliament should be able to make suggestions, make inputs, and indeed also in inputs that are made here in plenary. Members of Parliament, including members from the opposition, should be able to come up with great suggestions and proposals. I have always called for that, and I've always said, I look forward to the day when here in Parliament, we will be able to hear really outstanding proposals, out of this world type of proposals on how we can address some of the challenges that we face. Now, quite often, members of Parliament stand here and don't come forth with those types of proposals. And I sit here and say, I long for that day. Ngicabanga ukuthi mhlawumbe njengoba sengishilo ngelinye ilanga wena nomzana wena ozawuza nalawo ma proposal imbono emihle ozoyibeka la ukuthi sikwazi ukuthi lo mnotho welizwe lakithi ukuthi singawisa kanjani phambili. Ngithemba ukuthi uzoyenza njalo. Ngiyabonga.
The Honorable Shibambo.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Now, Deputy President, it's common cause that government policies have dismally failed to achieve inclusive economic growth in South Africa. Here are the indicators. 8% of the land is transferred since 1994. Outside of the institutional investors, black people have got less than 5% of banks' ownership. They've got less than 1% of insurance industry ownership. Out of the 8.9 trillion rands that is managed by asset management companies, less than 5% is managed by black asset managers. More than 70% of government's procurement spend benefits white companies. And the few of you who have benefited from black economic empowerment are just indebted staff riders in white corporations. So it vividly illustrates that black people have not benefited out of government interventions in the economy. Wouldn't you think that, one, it will be much more progressive to legislate a minimum of 50% ownership of black people of the South Africa's economy, because everything else that we have done in the past 23 years has failed. And added to that, don't you think that this is the right time for black political parties to unite and change the constitution to expropriate land without compensation? Thank you very much.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Shibambo, thank you very much for putting those statistics. I mean, some of those statistics are debatable, and we could possibly sit down and debate them. But the truth is, on the economic side, we have not made as much progress as we had anticipated. That is the reality. The economy of our country is still white-owned, white-controlled, and that poses a real challenge to should pose a real challenge to all of us, because we should not, having attained the vote for all South Africans, just think that all what they ever wanted was the vote and the rest, like economic power, was not important. Of course, economic power is important, and we should make sure that everything that we do, we go and vest economic power in the hands of the majority of our people. Now, various measures have been put in place. The broad-based Black Economic Empowerment Act was put in place, employment equity, and a whole number of other measures. And admittedly, many of such are not and have not borne the fruit that we expected. So hence, the governing party has come forward with the intervention of radical economic transformation, whose elements were clearly outlined by the President, by the Minister of Finance, and as the year ensues, you're going to hear various ministers, as they come up for their votes, they will also be speaking to the radical economic transformation concept to make sure that we move the issue of radical economic transformation forward. And all I can say is that, yes, we have not made as much progress as we had anticipated. We will be making progress because that has now become the key focus of this governing party. We're going to be coming up with programs, interventions, and initiatives that are going to move the needle in a way where Black people are going to have a sense and feel that, yes, they are going to benefit from the economy. You just look at procurement. Yes, you have said 70% of white companies benefit. That is now going to be turned on its head. It's going to be turned on its head. We want the majority of Black people's companies to benefit from that. We're going to be doing a whole lot of other interventions. And I say, watch this space. You're going to see great progress and changes beginning to ensue as we go forward. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Hlengwa.
Honorable Deputy President, at the heart of the transformation you speak about is the issue of education, and I know in the first question you went at length at explaining about the changes which are being effected in TVET education. But Honorable Deputy President, at the heart of the Fees Must Fall movement was also the issue of transforming the content, for a colloquial term, of university education. And so I'd like to find out what is your view with regards to ensuring that South African universities prioritize African literature, African knowledge, skills, and expertise, and that we give life to Agenda 2063 about building an African intelligentsia. We are quoting things from 1664, which are being published in the US and so on. When do we begin ensuring that the transformation and inclusive growth, which we speak about, encompasses an education system in its entirety, which speaks to Africa? Finally, Chair, Honorable Deputy President, if I may indulge you, I know it's one question. I asked about CPS and radical economic transformation, and I did not get a response. So I'm hoping that since you've spoken about radical economic transformation now, you will afford me the courtesy of giving me a response to that one as well. Thank you.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The issue that I guess you are addressing is this issue that has been raised by students who have sought to ensure that their education is decolonized and that we should decolonize our education system. You ask a direct question, my answer is yes. I'm in full support of the decolonization of our education curriculum, education system. It has for too long been too Eurocentric. And we need to respond very positively to promote African literature, to promote African knowledge systems, to promote everything that is there in Africa so that we grow an intelligentsia. But in my book, it is also to promote reading. And as we do this, as we promote African intelligentsia, we should be promoting reading. Our reading levels are very low in this country. We need to be generating more and more reading in our country so that young people, and indeed older people, should be able to read, and to read at great length and at great depth. So I'm in great support of that, and I'd like to see our curriculum beginning to reflect precisely the heroes and the heroines of our country, our struggle, and some of the knowledge systems that reside in Africa and that are promoted by great African intellectuals. We were pleasantly pleased the other day when Ngugi wa Thiong'o was here, and he was able to regale everyone who was able to meet him with his depth of knowledge on African language, African literature, and he was really talking about decolonizing our minds, because we still remain colonized in our thinking, in our way, in our approach, and you could say that possibly even in our political orientation. Our political orientation, particularly those who have a political orientation that veers more towards being conservative, deeply so imbued in this political ideology, which is completely devoid of what we are all about as Africans, which is Ubuntu, because that is what Professor Thiong'o was teaching us about. The CPS issue, I think I've spoken about. I mean, what we need to be doing as part of the broad Black economic empowerment process is that we should be procuring services, procuring goods for companies that are empowered. And if a company is well empowered, it has good Black economic empowerment credentials, that is the company that we should be doing business with, so that we can achieve what Honorable Shibambu was talking about, to ensure that Black people do get into the ownership and control levels of our economy. So the CPS one, I don't have a line of sight and knowledge of what their true shareholder base is, but I would expect that if we're procuring from them, it should be a company that is well empowered. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, we now come to the last question, question number 12, asked by the Honorable Nchaisa. The Honorable the Deputy President.
Madam Speaker, I'm informed by the relevant department that there is no need for the South African government to intervene on the Lesotho Highlands Water Project for Phase 2. I'm advised that the delays in the implementation have been addressed and the project will be delivered in line with the revised projections, with the delivery of water scheduled for 2025. Both governments have committed to the implementation of the project and are in constant communication through the Lesotho Highlands Water Commission, which is the governing structure which is entrusted with the role of the strategic oversight on implementation. In the meantime, delivery of water to South Africa through Phase 1, which, as we all know, has been completed, that continues. So there is no further need for any special intervention in this regard. We've come to a point where it's run-of-the-mill and communication continues and things are getting done. And water will be delivered in 2025 in terms of phase 2, but right now, water continues to flow from the mountains of Lesotho through the channels that have been constructed. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Nchaisa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I'm very much delighted that I'm going to put a question to my counterpart because I'm a Deputy President of AIC.
Congratulations, Honorable Nchaisa.
Please, be quiet, please. My last question. In Africa, they say, after us come walk in the ground. It's Sinam Valiaboga. That is my last question. My Deputy President, I just want to check now, to what extent of relief will this project go in terms of benefiting the people? That is in terms of numbers and on the part of the Department of Water and Sanitation in our country. Thank you very much.
Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Deputy President, from one Deputy President to another Deputy President. But there are a few Deputy Presidents as well, you must recognize that. So you and I are not the only ones, there are a few of us. Honorable Shivambu is the one Deputy President.
I think I'm the only one who's relevant here.
No, I thought, Honorable Shivambu, you will say you're the only one who's radical. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I think we should say that every project that we embark on as a South African government is aimed at benefiting a number of our people. From a water point of view, yes, our people will benefit in their millions, particularly in Gauteng and the Free State. And obviously in Lesotho, the people of Lesotho are also going to benefit as they do already, and as the people in Gauteng and the Free State also do. So it's a multi-beneficiary type of process where we seek to benefit as many people as possible. If you want real numbers, I don't have them, but it is a type of process where numbers can be provided to you fairly easily. So many people will benefit. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Passon.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Deputy President, since the Lesotho Highland Phase 2 agreement was signed in 2011, the water delivery dates have been delayed by 6 years, from 2019 to 2025, as you have mentioned. The direct cause of these delays are political interference by the ANC, noting that Minister Mokenyane stopped the pre-qualification tenders in 2015 to open the door for ANC Kader company LTE to submit their tender. So often in South Africa, the problem is not the plan, Deputy President, but government's inability to implement projects that unfortunately ends up costing billions more. Deputy President, can you give South Africa a commitment today that there will be no further political interference and delays on this important project? And could you inform Parliament how the political crisis in Lesotho will influence the Lesotho Highland project? I thank you.
The Honourable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. It was Minister Mokonyane who appointed a task team to investigate the maladministration in the procurement process and also to address the processes of delays. And that task team was appointed by herself, and I do not believe that she could have played any role in causing any further delays. And I can now say that most of the challenges and problems have now been solved. There's constant communication. The delivery, yes, has been delayed, which is very unfortunate, but it is going to happen in 2025. I do not anticipate that the political processes that are now unfolding in Lesotho are going to lead to any delay to this, for this project. The various governments that have come and gone in Lesotho have always been mindful of the importance of this project and have always sought to adhere to agreements that have been arrived at and reached. So I expect that the government, whichever one will emerge in the end now that there's been a vote of no confidence, is going to be the type of government that will adhere to agreements and make sure that the execution of the agreements happens. I think we can safely say that that should not be a problem or a major stumbling block. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Swart.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Arising from your response, Honourable Deputy President, and as a brother to a brother, not a Deputy President to a Deputy President, we in the ACDP are firstly grateful to Almighty God for answered prayers for the rains which have fallen over the country, resulting in the sudden rise of water levels at the Vaal and Bloemhof dams. And even water scientists have referred to this past week, called this a 4-day miracle. So we say, Malibongwe, Gamala, Inkosi. Secondly, just as far as the implementation of this project is concerned, and we appreciate it's a foreign affairs issue, but to what degree should you as the executive and we as Parliament be exercising an oversight role, appreciating that it is in construction in a foreign company, but to understand the issues of cost overruns, time overruns, and any possible corrupt activities. We obviously would like to ensure from Parliament's perspective that it is completed on time to provide the water that we need, and so that whilst we appreciate, we do pray for rain, the Lord provides rain, we need to be good stewards of the capacity of water that is supplied. Thank you.
The Honourable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and brother to brother. I'm able to say that, like you, and as a farmer as well, we're also very pleased that the rains have come, and particularly in the area where it matters most, in the farming areas of our country for food production, but also in the area that feeds the industrial areas of our country, like Gauteng, that the Vaal Dam levels have gone up. So we are truly grateful for that. And you depict it as a 4-day miracle, and we are very happy for these types of miracles. May we have more and more miracles. And I'm sure you will have a very great hand in making sure that we do have miracles going forward. When it comes to the issue of oversight, I think we've got, as I said earlier, we've got a number of committees in Parliament that exercise oversight over a number of things that the executive does. We've got, SCOPA plays such an important role. If there's any whiff or suspicion that money or resources have not been properly used, it plays that role. We've got a number of other agencies that play such a role. And I would say that those are the agencies and structures that we should utilize, both here in Parliament and outside Parliament, that should help us to exercise our oversight role on various endeavors that we get involved in as South Africans. And in this case, it is a cross-border type of issue. I'm sure that the portfolio committee that deals with this type of matters will be able to play a key role. So I would say, let us actively utilize those structures to achieve a good end for all South Africans. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Dlamini.
Yes, Speaker. I'm here. I need to deal with two issues. The question is going to be asked by Honorable Matias.
Honorable Dlamini, if you are not asking a follow-up question, just
Yes,
take
no.
your seat, then
Yeah,
let
I'm sorry.
Honorable Matias take the floor.
Yes, that's what is going to happen right now, Speaker.
Yes.
But the Deputy
No,
President, you said you got
Honorable-
a farmer. You
No,
got a farm.
just
What
sit
about
down.
other people? Can we deal with that issue?
Madam Speaker, Deputy President, water is as scarce as the truth coming from the mouth of politicians lately, especially from the ruling party. In 2015, the Department of Water and Sanitation reported that out of 5,000 registered dams in the country, there are only 320 state-owned. This is a serious indictment on the government and how it has allowed private ownership of public goods and at sometimes scoop by your own limited transformation roles, undermine them. The land question and water availability and use are intermittently linked. And if the state owned registered dams, you would be able to fast-track land reform. So the question is to you, Deputy President, would you be able as government to transform the society as faster and as equitably as possible if the state continues with constitutional provisions which protects private ownership of land and dams, and majority of these dams di fumana mapolasing a maburu ntate re sitwa le go etsa ditsela le go kenya dipalo tsa motlakase mono o neeletsa batho ba rona motlakase gobane mapolasi ana ownwa ke maburu jalo ko arabe potso ena ya rona kgetlo lena re kopa tlo tshepale le karabo ya gago e tla itshetlege potsong ena re botsitseng yone.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker, thank you. Ndate ke ntse ke araba dipotso mona ke ntse ke tshitleha hantle. Jwale le yona potso eo ya hao ke tla e arabela ka hobane ka nnete ntho eo e buang ke ya hore ho na le matamo a mangata mona empa a mang a ona a dibakeng tse ding tse mo mmung o le matsohong a batho ba bang. Jwale department ena ya rona ya water and sanitation ke yona e sebetsanang le tsona ntho tsena tsa metsi ke bona ba nehanang ka di license kapa ditokomane tsena tse dumelang batho hore ba kgone ho ba le metsi ba sebeditse ka tsela e itseng ka ho sheba ha ka nnete ke fumana hore mosebetsi o ba o etsang wa ho hlokomela metsi a rona mona haholo-holo le ho fa di-license ho batho ba batlang ho sebedisa metsi ke mosebetsi o ba o etsang ka tsela e nepahetseng ka ho sheba haka hantle ke ile ka etsa dipotso ka botsa hantle hore di-license tsena di-permit tsena ba di ntsha ha o le jwang ke ntse ke fumana hore ba di ntsha ka tsela e nepahetseng jwale ho mpontshang hore le yona nthwane ya hore ba hlokomele metsi a naha ena ntse le ntho e ntse ba e sebetsa ka tsela e ntle. So I have had no doubt in my mind that the Department of Water and Sanitation, in being the steward of our water resources in our country, has been sleeping on the job and has not been doing their proper job. They issue water licenses in quite a rigorous and prudent way. And in fact, what I do know is that they've even set up a structure that issues these licenses. Almost a semi-independent structure does so. So the stewardness of our water is well managed. The real challenge is that we are a water scarce country. And even now, as we're having these wonderful rains that are a miracle, we have not, in terms of the architecture of looking after our water, have not done it as well as I have seen in other countries, where we have sought to trap the water so that not all of it runs to the sea or just goes underground or evaporates. And that is a process that we now need to get on, so that as we have this water in great abundance from Providence, we should be able to trap it, to utilize it effectively, and for economic means, for instance, for irrigation, to empower our people as a whole. So I'm hoping that we will be able to move in that direction. But as for now, I think our water resources are well managed. Of course, we can always do better. Ke a leboha ntate.
Honourable members, that concludes questions to the Deputy President, and I thank the Deputy President. Now, honourable members, before I adjourn the House, I wish to deal with the matter raised earlier by Honourable Steenhuisen, the alleged breach of privilege, indeed raised by the Honourable the Chief Whip of the Opposition. Rule 31(3) provides that if an alleged breach of privilege does not directly affect a sitting of the House in the immediate future, the Speaker must refer the matter to the Powers and Privileges Committee and inform the House accordingly, either immediately or at the earliest opportunity. Therefore, the matter raised by the Honourable Member will accordingly be referred to the committee as indicated. Honourable members, that concludes the business for the day. The House is adjourned.
Well, a very good afternoon. Those were live visuals coming to us from the National Assembly, and that was the Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa